ChatGPT, AI machines,
satellite, engine ignition,
click here,
and liftoff.
From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here's Mic Drop, a longer listen to one of our favorite conversations of the week. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. On Tuesday, we brought you a conversation with Reality Winner, the former Air Force linguist who went to prison for leaking a classified document about Russian election interference back in 2017. She was charged under the Espionage Act, a century-old law originally written to stop spies and saboteurs during World War I.
I think the Reality Winner case should be understood as part of a series of cases where the government over the last 15 years has really thrown the book at folks who in other times might have been viewed as whistleblowers.
That's Stephen Vladeck, a professor at Georgetown Law. He says the Espionage Act wasn't designed to target leakers, it was built for traitors. And because of how broadly Congress wrote it, the law can be stretched to fit almost anyone who handles national security information.
The problem with the Espionage Act is that you don't even have to solicit the leak to be guilty under the statute. I mean, the statute makes it a crime for someone sitting at home to open up the New York Times or to listen to this podcast and know that they're reading or hearing information related to the national defense.
Over time, that vague language gave prosecutors enormous leeway. What started as a tool to stop spies became a weapon against people who share secrets with the press. And so far, it's only been used against leakers. But Steve Vladeck worries it might not stop there.
That led a lot of folks to worry that journalists who are the recipients of national security leaks might be next.
Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from Clean My Mac. If you're like me, your cloud drives are packed with files you don't actually need. Sync duplicates, old backups, random junk just gobbling up storage. Clean My Mac takes care of that with a new cloud cleanup feature. It connects to your accounts on iCloud, OneDrive, and Google Drive and scans to find large space wasters, both in cloud storage and on your device. And while my Mac health is apparently excellent, Clean My Mac found 8 gigabytes of junk on my computer and tons of duplicate downloads, and it removed a bunch of leftover applications I never use. Who knew? And this happens locally on my Mac, so my data stays safe. Clean My Mac has a whole suite of other features too, including their Moonlight anti-malware engine. With just a click, the anti-malware tool scans and removes viruses, ensuring your Mac remains threat-free. Not everything deserves eternal storage, so why pay for it? Get tidy today with Clean My Mac. Try it free for 7 days and use the promo code CLICK to save an additional 20% on your purchase at cleanmymac.com. Support for Click Here comes from Monarch. Let's be real, most of us want to stay organized with our money, but life gets in the way. Now there's an app that finally makes it doable. Feel organized and confident in your finances with Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you, so you never need to touch a spreadsheet again. You can link all your accounts in just a few minutes. And if you're having a good year, with Monarch, you're not leaving money on the table. You'll save more, invest smarter, and hit your financial goals faster. That's why the Wall Street Journal named it the best budgeting app of 2025, and Forbes called it the best app for couples. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code CLICKHERE at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code CLICKHERE. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop. In December 1915, President Woodrow Wilson delivered his third State of the Union address. Europe was at war.
Cheers and songs and flag waving.
America goes to war wide-eyed and eager. 10 million register for the draft.
And while the United States was still trying to stay out of the fighting, Wilson could feel the pressure mounting. German subs were sinking ships. American factories were producing weapons for the Allies. And the president worried that foreign spies, or even anti-war activists, might undermine the country from within. So he asked Congress for new powers, a law that would let the government punish anyone who threatened national security or revealed military secrets. When the U.S. entered the war less than 2 years later, he got what he asked for. It was called the Espionage Act. For somebody who may not be steeped in all things Espionage Act, can you talk a little bit about that?
The statute was enacted in the middle of World War I, on the eve of the United States entry into World War I. And the thing it was principally concerned with was what we might call conventional espionage. German spies in the United States stealing our national security secrets.
And for a while, Georgetown professor Steve Vladeck says that's precisely how it worked.
It was also enacted before just about all of the modern Supreme Court's jurisprudence respecting both the First Amendment freedom of speech and the idea that criminal statutes need to be specific. It was written at a time when Congress would address those kinds of problems with a sledgehammer, not with a scalpel.
That sledgehammer approach worked during wartime. But when the war ended, the Espionage Act didn't disappear. It just sat there, waiting. It wasn't used again until 1938, when a Los Angeles dry cleaner found a classified Navy memo in a customer's pocket. That customer, Mikhail Gorin, turned out to be a Soviet spy. The government dusted off the Espionage Act, and Gorin was sent back to the Soviet Union. For decades, that was the pattern. The law was rarely used and only for spies. Then, in the 1970s, came the Pentagon Papers.
A federal judge today ordered the New York Times to suspend temporarily publication of a series of reports based on a secret Pentagon study of how the...
For younger listeners, those were top-secret Defense Department studies that revealed how the U.S. government had misled the public about the Vietnam War.
In Boston, Dr. Daniel Ellsberg, the man named as the source of the Pentagon copy that appeared in the New York Times, turned himself in today to federal authorities.
We must not have the Ellsberg thing be a reason for dissension in the Bureau.
President Nixon was furious, as his now famous Oval Office tapes revealed.
Absolutely, but I just say that we've got to keep our eye on the main ball. The main ball's Ellsberg. We got to get this son of a bitch.
For one of the first times, the Espionage Act, a law built for spies, was used against someone who leaked to the press. The charges against Ellsberg were eventually dropped, but the idea stuck. The law could be stretched. And it was, again, in 1985, when a Navy analyst, Samuel Morrison, was tried for leaking satellite photos to a defense magazine. He got 2 years in prison.
This was not, espionage. This was basically just leaking.
That case cemented a shift. The Espionage Act's focus quietly expanded, from foreign spies to government insiders.
Morrison was this really important precedent for the proposition that even though the statute's called the Espionage Act, it really doesn't matter whether your intent is to steal information for the purposes of benefiting a foreign power. All that matters is whether the thing you stole might benefit a foreign power.
By the early 2000s, even journalists began to wonder where the line was.
We really actually didn't see the government really try to use the Espionage Act to prosecute journalists or, what we might say, other downstream recipients of national security information until the George W. Bush administration in the early 2000s.
In 2006, then U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales hinted that New York Times reporters could be prosecuted for publishing details of NSA surveillance programs. During a congressional hearing, he was asked if the White House had a double standard on leaks.
For the record, sir, let me just say, whether or not I say anything publicly here on out, I condemn all leaks. Yeah. And so just for the record.
It was mostly bluster. No one from the Times was ever charged. And then a new case, U.S. versus Rosen, brought the use of the Espionage Act back into the headlines. 2 AIPAC lobbyists were accused of passing Pentagon information to Israel.
Even though these 2 defendants were not themselves government employees, they were the intermediaries, that they had violated the Espionage Act by basically helping to get the information from point A to point B.
The case eventually fell apart, but its logic was alarming. It marked the first time that prosecutors had tried to use the Espionage Act against private citizens, people outside the government, simply for sharing classified information with an ally. That meant the same argument could, in theory at least, be applied to journalists.
And so it's on the heels of the Rosen case that we really started to see, not just for the first time, concerted worry about the scope of the statute, but also fear, I think, on the part of media organizations that the government had the power to leverage the capaciousness of the statute against, whistleblowers, leakers, journalists, what have you.
It was a glimpse of how a law written for spies could, in the right hands, or the wrong ones, be turned on the people reporting on them. When we come back, how that fear grew during the Trump years. Stay with us. Support for Click Here comes from ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone. Most of the time, you'll probably be fine. But all it takes is one drop, and you'll wish you spent those extra few dollars on a case. Every time you connect to an unencrypted network in cafes, hotels, airports, your online data is at risk. It doesn't take much for someone to hack your device so they can steal and sell your personal information. ExpressVPN protects against that by creating a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. And the security is top-notch. In fact, it would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. Best of all, the app is incredibly easy to use and can be installed on all your devices. So go ahead, log on to that Wi-Fi in your local cafe, but make sure you have ExpressVPN first, so you don't end up with a nasty surprise. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/clickhere. That's expressvpn.com/clickhere to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/clickhere.
This show is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
Every day, it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's not.
Alex reassured me that he was a fully licensed and certified psychologist. But in fact, Alex is not a person, but it is an unfeeling chatbot.
I'm Dexter Thomas, and every week on my podcast, Kill Switch, we look at the right now of living in the future to help you take back control of your life. Listen to Kill Switch in the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
When President Wilson signed the Espionage Act in June 1917, he was actually disappointed. He'd wanted even more power, including the right to censor the press. The Senate rejected that by a single vote. But every generation since has tested that boundary. During the Obama administration, the Justice Department used the act to prosecute 8 sources who'd leaked to journalists. That was more than all the previous presidents combined.
Some of that was unquestionably provoked by the Edward Snowden leaks. And so, I think some of it was the Obama administration felt pressure to look like it was being tough on national security leaks, and this was one way to do it.
It also subpoenaed reporters, including New York Times journalist James Risen, to reveal his confidential sources. Risen refused, invoking the First Amendment, a defense that, to this day, the Supreme Court has never formally endorsed. Do journalists actually have any legal protection from being prosecuted under the Espionage Act if they're just doing routine news gathering?
So this is the question, and it is a question the Supreme Court has never answered. There are incredibly powerful arguments that what you might call traditional news gathering is protected by the First Amendment, and that the First Amendment necessarily provides a defense, right, against Espionage Act prosecutions. But Dina, the Supreme Court has never recognized that. This Supreme Court in particular might not be in a hurry to recognize that.
That silence is meaningful. For decades, the court has sidestepped opportunities to draw a clear line between leaking and reporting, between those who break a secrecy law and those who expose what those secrets reveal. So even though news organizations rely on the First Amendment as a kind of shield, that protection isn't spelled out anywhere in any of the court's rulings. And without a definitive decision, it means that every new leak and every administration's response becomes a test case in real time. Which brings us to the Trump administration, and a moment that made many reporters pretty uneasy.
We're getting breaking news. President Trump posting on Truth Social moments ago that the U.S. has completed an attack on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
After U.S. airstrikes on Iran earlier this year, President Trump claimed that the facilities were completely obliterated. But leaked Defense Intelligence Agency documents told a different story.
3 sources tell CNN that according to an early U.S. intelligence assessment, the U.S. military strikes on 3 of Iran's nuclear facilities last weekend did not destroy the core components of the country's nuclear program.
Trump was furious, and he vowed to find out who the leaker is, even hinting that reporters could be forced to reveal their sources.
If they wanted, they could find out easily. You go up and tell the reporter, national security, who gave it. You have to do that. And I suspect we'll be doing things like that.
Later, Rolling Stone reported that he even asked why the press itself couldn't be charged under the Espionage Act.
This administration is also not big into nuance when it comes to prosecuting those with whom it disagrees. And so, whereas even the Obama administration, which was, to my mind, far too aggressive in using the Espionage Act, I think would still have admitted publicly that it understood that a reporter who helped to sort of disseminate a national security leak wasn't in the same boat as the leaker or as even a spy. I don't think this administration is going to take that view. If anything, I think this administration would be only too quick to vilify the reporter who's in the middle of a big national security leak.
So far, most of that has been rhetoric. But behind the scenes, policies are changing. The Justice Department reversed earlier limits on searching reporters' phones. The Pentagon has said reporters in the building have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and take random polygraph tests.
I think one of the real concerns is sort of the risk that this administration will use the Espionage Act as a pretext to try to basically see who journalists are talking to, whether it's a search warrant, whether it's a subpoena for phone records. And that brings with it all kinds of concerns about outing the journalist's sources, finding on their phone who they've been texting with, who's on their signal threads.
The Trump administration hasn't rewritten the Espionage Act, but it revealed how easily it could be reinterpreted. A century-old law written for spies and saboteurs was now being openly discussed as a weapon against the press. And that shift from punishing espionage to policing reporting has changed the stakes for everyone handling classified information.
We have a statute that just doesn't draw the kind of distinctions that it should, and that in not drawing those distinctions gives the government an awful lot of leverage over people who might fancy themselves whistleblowers, over reporters who may not be so careful, when it comes to how they handle and how they receive national security information.
In other words, a law written for a different war, now being fought on a different battlefield. Now, Congress could fix that, narrow the language, clarify who counts as a spy or a leaker or a journalist, and they've tried.
Every 10 or 15 years, Congress wakes up and decides that it's time to reform the Espionage Act. And it holds hearings and it calls witnesses.
The hearing on the espionage case is now about to take place.
I've been that witness in 2 of the cycles.
Our next witness, Professor Steve Vladeck, is professor of law.
And, the witnesses all show up and say, yes, you've got to fix it. And some of them even have ideas for how to fix it. But Congress never fixes it.
Until it does, Steve Vladeck says, everyone handling sensitive information should stay alert.
I think reporters and news organizations should be bracing for more aggressive use of the Espionage Act than we've ever seen before. More aggressive use against leakers, more aggressive use against journalists, and frankly, more aggressive use against anyone in between.
Will that materialize? Who knows? But if and when you start seeing big stories about national security leaks and the White House making noise about how we've got to get to the bottom of who's doing this, I'd be nervous. And I'd want to be careful if I had any potential hypothetical liability. And I'd done everything possible to cover not just my tracks, but the tracks of the other folks who might be liable as well. Because when secrecy and transparency collide, it isn't always spies who get caught in the crossfire. Sometimes it's the people trying to tell the rest of us what's really going on. From Recorded Future News, this has been Click Here's Mic Drop. It was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, Lucas Riley, and me, Dina Temple-Raston. It was edited by Karen Duffin. We'll be back on Tuesday with an all-new episode of Click Here. Have a great weekend.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.